Hello, my name is Craig Camp from Troon Vineyard in Oregon's Applegate Valley. Thank you for joining us for a new episode of Troon Talk, where we dig deeply into biodynamic and regenerative organic gold certified agriculture and winemaking. The days of Troon Vineyard as only a vineyard are long gone. Today, Troon Vineyard is a biodiverse farm of almost 100 acres. Life on our farm includes cider apples, a vegetable garden, a food forest, rewilded honeybees, sheep, chickens, wildlife, dogs, humans, and, of course, grapevines. Today, we are Troon Vineyard and Farm. In this episode of Troon Talk, we will dig deeply into a key element of our biodiversity strategies as we discuss our vegetable and fruit gardens with Director of Agriculture Garett Long, Director of Farm Sales Jennifer Teisl, and Garden and Orchard Manager Benjamin Hyrn. Our garden touches many facets of our farm. It adds biodiversity, beauty, and creates truly nourishing food for our team and those who visit our farm stand. Having a vital farm stand at the winery is inspiring, exciting, and meaningful. Join us in this episode as we walk through our garden, from creation to planting to our farm stand. Hi, Garett. Welcome back to Troon Talk. Yesterday was the Rogue Valley farm tour, so I think this is a great day to talk about the garden, which has become a very important part of Troon. So how do you feel the garden, where does it belong in the scope of being on a vineyard?
Well, I think diverse farms are more resilient inherently, both environmentally and economically. So just from a production standpoint, we try to maximize biodiversity in every way. That's with the crops that we plant, in integrating animals into the system, and in our compost, maybe from a microbial standpoint. And so by adding a garden, vegetables, fruit, berries, and produce, herbs, flowers, all of that into our production model, really we're adding a ton of diverse contributions into the compost. Every sort of plant has a unique association with a microbial community. And so I feel that we make better compost by having a garden here, but ultimately it's not about growing a garden in order to make better compost. I think the real benefit of growing a garden and doing that in a vineyard setting is that I think it really surprises a lot of our guests to the tasting room that we have a farm stand on site and that we have produce for sale. The resilience that's brought about economically in a diverse system comes about as in this changing climate, in this modern age, we have a lot of pressures in agriculture. That's drought, that's heat stress, and it also can be extreme weather events like frost at weird times of the year. And in that springtime, when the vines are in bloom and our fruit trees are in bloom, that potential for a late frost to totally kill that year's crop is very real. And so we use frost protection measures to try to protect our grapes. But having a garden as part of the system also means that should we have some losses, should we have a really late frost that we can't do anything about, hopefully our production in the vegetable garden will allow us to have something to sell. And so for farms that are diversified, to be able to bring something to market in the event of a total crop loss or something like some unexpected event is a real benefit to farmers to be able to stay afloat economically. But, I kind of started maybe with the less obvious stuff. I think the reality is we want to offer fresh produce grown biodynamically and regeneratively to our community. We're working with a couple of chefs and restaurants that we've hand chosen because of aligned values. They really want to get this regenerative produce on their menus, and we really feel strongly about working closely with them collaboratively. And for example, we're hosting dinners here. We threw a really cool summer solstice farm-to-table dinner, and the chefs cooked the entire menu from produce from the farm. And I think to be able to offer that for these special events or even to these food trucks, we're having food trucks come on Sundays. And it's been so exciting to work with food trucks like Smitty's and like Ernest Baking Company to be able to give them our farm availability the week before they come out and have them specialize their menus or create menus all around the produce that we have to offer here at Troon. So there's opportunities both to sell to chefs and restaurants with these aligned values, but also to be able to hold events or host food trucks that are featuring our produce. So all of that I think is really important to why we have a garden here in the first place. And I think the last thing I'll mention is really kind of a matter of social fairness in a way. The garden was first established back in the spring of 2021. And for about the first year of the garden, and that's continued to today, a lot of the produce has gone to staff. This has just been a benefit of working here. Before we got the farm stand set up and really started deeply cultivating these relationships, this has been an outlet for our staff to take home fresh produce just as a benefit of working here. So I think that's been a really important and integral part of this farm in just supporting our team.
But just to take a look at it from a very high level, of the concept of the whole farm in biodynamics and this biodiversity that it brings to Troon, don't you? To me, that's the heart of the garden and why it's here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was speaking to just how biodiversity relates to resilience inherently, but you're absolutely right. I think from that framework of biodynamics, that is a big reason why resilience is a big reason why biodiversity is important on farms and why it's a part of their standard to not just grow a single crop, but to also have crop and animal systems together to make these value-added products to support your community. It's all related very much back to this whole farm system and how the waste streams from one part of the system can ultimately power another. And that gets back to the composting, right? All of the waste streams from the garden, for example, in our post-harvest station, we can give all of that to the chickens first and foremost. We can give other parts of these waste streams back to the compost. That compost goes out to fertilize the entire 100-acre estate here. And so really, yeah, from a whole farm system, there's essentially zero waste when you start to leverage these different opportunities of having, for example, on farm stand, composting, animals, processing, all of that relates to this whole farm system.
So we're really farming everything. There's no-till agriculture. There's the garden. There's obviously the vineyard. So that really is that whole concept of farming the soil.
Absolutely.
So what is your vision for the garden now as we go into the future? It was basically a little test patch when you arrived. Now it's much more than that. Could you describe that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think before starting about the future, we need to take a look at the past and how we got to where we are today. You're right that it was a little acre and a half test patch that was not planted in vines. Back in 2017, we had a soil testing company come out and dig these backhoe pits all over the farm and really characterize our soil thoroughly to help determine where we were going to plant what varietals and on what soil types. And there's this little acre and a half of really heavy clay soil that was not ideal for vines. And so I was told, all right, this is the garden site, Garett, have at it. So, but this was all actually before I arrived. So maybe they said, here you go, Andrew Beatty, our biodynamic consultant, and Nate and Sarah, our winemaking team and our vineyard team, they all contributed to the establishment of this garden in the spring of 2021. And so at first it was just a small little semicircle, very small garden that we called the experimental garden, 13 short rows, and planted again just what staff was interested in, what staff was going to take home. And that was established, first designed by Andrew, our consultant. It was installed by Adon and the vineyard team, as well as Nate and Sarah from the winemaking team. And they managed it until I arrived in August of 2021 as the director of agriculture. And through my experience learning about farming here in Southern Oregon, my last 10 years of experience were in California, a lot of that Southern California. And it is a slightly different climate here. But it's a climate that's really hospitable to growing a huge array of crops. So I started dreaming in those first couple of months here about developing this garden further. And so I kind of developed this big scheme or this big design for the acre and a half to expand not just the annual vegetable production, but to start to incorporate fruit trees, berries, perennial flowers, and medicinal herbs, and all of these perennial crops into a permaculture-style food forest. And so taking this cohesive design for the acre and a half, we have season by season slowly added on these layers to the garden to make it more complex and to produce a lot more diversity in the garden. So after that first year, In 2022, we really set to breaking ground on the main garden. This is about a half acre of annual veggies and flowers and herbs, and we had pretty good successes. We had some failures that I think a lot of farmers do when you break ground on a new site, especially a heavy clay site. It can be challenging, but we worked through those challenges in the first year and then really started to dream about how to build out this food forest and what crops we wanted to select. And late in that year, late of 2022, Jenna Outwater came to Team Troon, and she brought with her experience and a real passion for designing systems. She has a lot of experience with habitat restoration and working with native plants, and so we incorporated some of those into the food forest. But she also helped me research some really funky berries and herbs and things that I had never heard of before. For example, sea buckthorn and gummy berries are both examples of these nitrogen-fixing shrubs that are really important to building soil health, but they also produce a fruit crop. And in the case of sea buckthorn, a berry that has one of the highest vitamin C contents of any food that we know out there. So these are really cool examples that Jenna's really brought to the design process. And so earlier this year in 2023, we sourced all those plants and planted the food forest. And that food forest includes all kinds of stone fruit. We've got cherries, peaches, nectarines, plums, and these hybrid varieties like pluots, a plum apricot hybrid. We've planted all kinds of berry shrubs and perennial veggies like artichokes and asparagus, sunchokes. We've got blueberries and strawberries in there and honeyberries as well. And then we've got a whole bunch of other herbs, flowers, ground covers, vining crops, things that will really continue to grow as this food forest matures and evolves. And so to take a look to the future, the last element of this original design that we started dreaming about a couple years ago is to build out a culinary and medicinal herb garden. We added another really key member to the team recently. Ben Hyrn came to us by way of working at Pacific Botanicals. So his knowledge of herb cultivation and large-scale herb production has been a real asset and really pretty key timing for the development of this new herb garden. So I'm excited and I can't wait to fly a drone up and take an aerial view of this. We're actually taking that triskelion symbol or that druid spiral symbol that you can find on our Druid's Fluid label, and we're incorporating that into the shape of the garden in a really exciting way. So once we establish that herb garden, which will be next spring, we'll have this cohesive 1.5 acre planting that includes annual vegetables, about 1 acre of this permaculture style food forest and herb garden. And all of it is going to continue to mature over the years. You know, these fruit trees can take sometimes 3 to 5 years to produce fruit. But what I think we can expect is next year we'll start to have a lot more berries. Maybe the first fruit will start to come on and we'll have small amounts of the stone fruit and figs and persimmons available. But really, I think as the garden matures, we'll get much greater abundance. And I think that really relates back to soil health. That relates back to our experience of really learning what grows well in our climate, what sells well at the farm stand, what are the crops that our community are really most interested in. And because the Applegate Valley is such a wonderful agricultural production area, you know, we've got a lot of really wonderful organic vegetable farmers. There's flower farmers, there's dairies, there's national herb farms like Herb Farm, the company, and Pacific Botanicals. These guys have been here for decades, I think more than 50 years in the case of that company. And so they have been providing this service to the community. So we really want to know, where are those gaps? You know, what are those niches that we can hopefully fill, rather than creating more redundancy of people who are already doing really great work growing regenerative organic certified herbs. We want to supplement that here.
So next we're going to hear from Ben and Jennifer. You just mentioned Ben. Maybe you could just do a short introduction of these people you work with.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ben Hyrn, I mentioned, we just hired to be our garden and orchard manager. He got his education at Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, studying horticulture, and came to us by way of Pacific Botanicals. So he's managing our garden and food forest. He's also managing the apple orchard, and we're really excited about what his experience, both in college as well as practical experience as a farmer, is going to bring to Troon. Jennifer Teisl is our Director of Farm Sales. She came to the team this January, and she's been really, really instrumental in helping set up the farm stand and helping cultivate those relationships with local chefs and restaurants. And I just have to say on a personal level how grateful I am for Jennifer here, where I can say as the Director of Agriculture, we're going to grow the crops and we're going to get it to the wash pack station and process that. And by the time it gets to the walk-in door, I get to pass that off to Jennifer to be able to stock the farm stand and work on selling this to chefs and restaurants. So I feel so blessed to be able to have her support in that.
Okay, thank you, Garett. Now let's hear from Jennifer and Ben.
I'm here today with Ben Hyrn, who is the manager of the garden and orchard at Troon Vineyard. And Ben, I'd just like to start if you'd introduce yourself and tell us what led you to Troon.
Hey, Jennifer, how's it going?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. I'm really excited to be the garden and orchard manager here at Troon. I got the opportunity when I picked up the phone from Garett Long after I kind of put in a little application, and I knew about Troon already because of tasting the great wine here. And when I moved to Oregon, it was one of the first vineyards I actually visited. And I remember sitting out on the deck and getting the call that my new place was ready to move into and enjoying the great wine. And little did I know that a little over a year later, I'd be working here. So when I saw the opportunity pop up, I was really excited to get involved. And being a regenerative, biodynamic farm, it was definitely right up my alley.
Well, it sounds like it was meant to be.
I think so.
And so what's your background in school? What did you study?
I went to California Polytechnic University at San Luis Obispo, and I studied fruit and crop science. And I spent a lot of time on the organic farm there, learning about growing and selling organic veggies. And after that, I spent some time in the industry in a couple different fields, none of which were directly related to organic or biodynamic growing. So I'm just thrilled to be a part of something that's really in line with those practices.
So Ben, can you give me a little more detail on the garden in terms of the different sections and what we're growing there?
Yeah, so the main garden consists of a lot of annual kind of produce. We have tomatoes and potatoes and cucumbers and cilantro, basil, all the kind of staples of a garden. The experimental area is a little bit smaller, and that's where it was all started. So there's some older plantings of kind of culinary herbs there, and some smaller plantings of beans and garlic, and that's also quite a bit of annuals. And then in the food forest, it's a lot of fruit trees, which haven't started producing yet. They were put in last year. And in between the tree plantings are perennial shrubs, as well as some nitrogen fixing annuals like beans. But we also have nitrogen fixing trees in there too. So the perennial vision in the food forest is to establish the trees while intercropping with nitrogen fixing, and we also have a lot of squash in there to provide the shade and moisture retention. So that's kind of the trajectory of the food forest.
So those are our permaculture beds.
Yes, it's still a work in progress. Mm-hmm. And those beds have a much wider spacing with some grazing area in between the actual beds, which can increase our biodiversity, and we can have blooms of wild flowers in there, and it just makes it look really pretty.
So I think a few weeks ago, we have a flock of sheep here at Troon, and I believe they were there grazing and doing the mowing for you guys down in the garden. So do you want us to tell us a little bit more about the sheep and the chickens?
Yeah, we have a rotational grazing of sheep and chickens, and they worked their way through those alleys in the food forest, which is a lot better than me having to run a mower or anything through there. And they sure are happy to get all that forage. And then behind them usually come the chickens, which is kind of like the cleanup crew. They do a good job pecking through everything that the sheep may have otherwise missed. So they were in there for about a week, and then they get rotated on.
All right. Let's talk a little bit more about our certifications here at Troon. We're not only a vineyard, we are a full working farm. So can you share a little bit about what those certifications are?
Yeah, we have 3 different certifications, which are organic, regenerative, and biodynamic. The organic is through CCOF, regenerative is through ROC, and biodynamic is through Demeter. And they all have different qualifications, but it's sort of like a hierarchy with a lot of the regenerative and biodynamic meeting a lot of the organic standards. So it's like about going above and beyond organic certification. And within that, biodynamic has its own guidelines, and like I said, some of them overlap with organic. The regenerative has different guidelines and even different levels. So you could be a silver, or you could be like Troon, you could be the gold level regenerative, which is the highest tier and involves no-till, it involves animal incorporation, and a lot of things that many other farms find difficult to achieve.
Right. So if we think about those certifications and how they guide what we do here at Troon, how is our garden different, say, than a conventional garden? What does it look like? What does it feel like? How is it unique? Because we have those standards and we're accountable to them.
So off the top of my head, one really interesting thing is that we don't do a whole lot of tractor work. And this really cuts down on the soil compaction and the hard pan that can be made, and really promotes soil health by keeping that topsoil intact and alive, and not driving over it and working it all the time. We really just promote what's already there and build upon it by incorporating more compost annually and mulching and planting a large variety of plants. Some of them, their only purpose is for promoting good pollinators or deterring pests instead of spraying or tilling the ground. So, yeah.
So I know I was in the garden last week, and it looks amazing. There's sunflowers popping up. Tell me what you're most excited about right now in terms of we're almost to the full height of the season. What are you excited about? What's growing right now?
Well, this morning I just picked a bunch of tomatoes, and it was our first tomato harvest. So that is probably the highlight right now. We have a dinner event going on this weekend, and we were really hoping to have some ripe tomatoes for that, and they just popped off. So that's been really fun. The other day we had a food truck come by to look at some of our stuff, and we checked out the carrots with them, and those are really sizing up. So that's exciting to see those coming. And then it's the middle of summer. It's really go time, so everything's really pushing right now. We got summer squash going almost every day, and the bulb onions are really starting to get fat, so that's fun.
All right. Well, I know how hard you guys work down there, so I'll be checking back with you in a few weeks to see what's coming in next.
So Jennifer, maybe you could tell me a little bit about what you do here.
Yeah, I'd love to. So my title is Director of Farm Sales, which means I wear a lot of hats. So I, just to backtrack a little, what led me here to Troon, I was living in the Hudson Valley in New York, and I had a farm where I was growing vegetables, and I sold directly to restaurants in New York City. So I've been passionate about farming for several years now. Also been passionate about wine as well. So watching what was happening at Troon for the last few years was really getting me excited and thinking about how the wine industry as a sector of agriculture could really be impactful in ways such as biodynamic farming, regenerative farming. There's a real opportunity for it to be beyond just growing wine grapes. So that's something I'm very passionate about. And just watching what was happening at Troon just is really pushing the envelope for what's possible for a winery. Yeah, so an opportunity came up for me to visit Troon, and it turned out that they were had a position open for me. So I was thrilled to be able to be part of this team. We really have a group of talented, passionate people here. So it's been really fun and exciting getting to work here in the Applegate Valley.
So how's that farm stand of ours? Can you tell me a little more about when it was made, what it's stocked with?
Absolutely. Yeah, so the farm stand is new this season here at Troon. It was built last year, and this is our first season of it being fully open, available to our guests. So if you come to visit the tasting room and have a wine tasting, you can visit our farm stand, and we have everything that you've been growing, you and your team, Ben, down at the garden. We harvest weekly, and all of that biodynamic regenerative produce is available in the farm stand. Also, eggs from our chickens that are happy chickens, pasture raised. So we also have that for all of our visitors here. So I love the idea of the farm stand because it's a way for people who are coming, maybe they think they're just coming to do a wine tasting, they can see that we are a full working farm here. We are a biodynamic farm. We have biodiversity. We have sheep. We have chickens. We have the full working garden that we talked about. So it's a way for them, a tangible way for them to be connected to that. And it gives us an opportunity to talk about what we do here. We are the concepts and the principles of biodynamics can be a little intimidating to people sometimes, or maybe a little unsure as to what we're talking about. And to be able to see the produce and to talk about it, we can really sort of demystify what biodynamics is. It's really that we have a farm where we're working with nature, and we're supporting natural systems rather than working against them. And the tangible proof is come and taste our kale and our carrots and our tomatoes and all of this beautiful produce, and see how we are this really working dynamic farm that includes all the people that work here as well. And that's what I love about the principles, is that we are this closed loop farming system, and it's a beautiful principle to be a part of.
I totally agree. And we don't just have produce in the farm stand. I think I saw a lot of colorful flowers down there.
Yes, we do. We have beautiful flower bouquets that are available when you come to visit. We also have some really fun things we're doing. We're making wine salts from some of our Syrah, our Troon Syrah. We have dried herbs. So we have a lot of really fun stuff they're all products of our farm. So it's really engaging in a way for people to participate in what we're doing here beyond our the amazing wine that we make here. We have all this other aspect to what Troon is as well.
Yeah, right now in there I think we have chamomile drying that is going to be made for tea. And today we're harvesting a lot more lavender to dry. And if you come check out the farm stand, you'll probably see it. If you look up, you'll see lots of beautiful bunches hanging from the strings on the ceiling. So the whole look of the farm stand is definitely beautiful too. And the farm, and it's just very intentional, the design of everything. So people love it, and especially restaurants and some of our food truck partners. So could you tell us a little bit more about who exactly those are and the relationships that we've been making?
Yeah, absolutely. The goal was to integrate into the local food scene in a really organic way. We really want to be part of this community here. So we are partnering with local restaurants and some food trucks. So Lark's in Ashland is one of them. Lindsay Lodge, which is here in the Applegate, just a few miles away. We're working with them. We're on their menu as well. Gogie's in Jacksonville, and then in Grants Pass, we work with Partake and Lulu's. So these are local restaurants that are really excited about sourcing their produce as close as possible and working with local farms. So yeah, it's really fun, and many of these restaurants also feature our wines. So to be able to visit a restaurant and see Troon wine and Troon produce, it's really exciting for us to be part of the community in that way.
Are there any other ways that people can enjoy the produce besides buying it at the farm stand or going to a restaurant? How else could somebody come enjoy the wine and food here at Troon?
Oh, well, we do have a lot of events where we do farm-to-table dinners. So that's a fun way to participate and learn more. So we'll have events like that coming up in the future and do some wine tasting and pairing menus featuring our produce. A lot of fun stuff coming up.
All right. And if you come to the events, hopefully you can get a little farm tour as well and learn more and see the entire garden.
Yeah, no, there's on our website, you can sign up for a farm tour and wine tasting, which is really educational, fun experience. So if you're really interested to learn more, I highly recommend taking one of those tours. Okay, I'm going to ask you now. So, Ben, we've been talking a lot about our biodynamic regenerative farm here at Troon. What have you seen in the Applegate Valley here that's getting you excited about how things are evolving and what the future would look like here?
Well, I think that Troon is one of the many vineyards in this area, but I think we're definitely really leading the way on the produce and the full farm atmosphere. But in general, this entire community is really flourishing. You could go in any direction and find another great farm to explore and hang out at and learn more about. We have all kinds of different industries in the Applegate here, from dairy to wine to produce, and even little nurseries, animals, all kinds of stuff. And not to mention the rafting. That is really fun too.
Yeah, you don't want to miss the rafting on the Applegate River.
You don't want to miss the rafting. So after a long day of, a long, tough day of drinking wine and eating great food, you could float down the river.
Yeah. As long as you're not afraid of a little cold water.
Yeah. But from the river, you'd see all kinds of beautiful mountains and biodiversity and insects and birds and creatures and fish. You might see something new every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you and I have talked about this, how what we envision for the Applegate and what we see happening here in this. There's a long history of organic farming in this area, and it just seems like it's continuing to expand and grow and attract more farmers to think about regenerative and organic. So I think it's really exciting to try to celebrate people who farm that way, and all the artisans we have here, like you're saying, who make cheese, raise animals in pasture. There's a lot of really amazing things happening here.
Yeah.
And then to visit here this amazing Klamath-Siskiyou ecoregion with all of the biodiversity, which is what we're trying to, create this network of farms and people, protecting that, celebrating that, and continuing to build upon it.
Yeah, I think we're all really celebrating the area and what we can do here. There's also jams and chocolates and medicinal and culinary herbs and just about everything that I can think of that gets me really excited about crafting stuff.
Yeah. And let's not forget the wine.
And of course, some of the best wine in the world.
Hi, this is Garett. I'm back with Jennifer, and I just wanted to talk about the farm stand with you, Jennifer. How have our guests to the tasting room initially perceived having a farm stand here on site?
Yeah, we have guests coming in to taste wine, and they're very surprised to see that we have a farm stand that features all of the produce that we grow here on the farm at Troon. We are a full working farm, so it's really exciting to invite people in to experience everything we're growing and all the amazing things happening here. So, yeah, it's been fun to have people pick up wine for their dinner and also be able to have ingredients to make a whole meal with biodynamic produce and biodynamic wine. And I think the community is really excited about having that here in the Applegate.
Yeah, definitely. I know I've spoken to some customers as I've just passed through the tasting room, and just the genuine surprise of seeing this farm stand built out. It's really beautiful. I mean, the materials we used are really focused on using, as little plastic as possible, and where it is used, it's compostable. And I think people are really paying attention to and are impressed by, the materials that are used, the aesthetic beauty of it. And then hopefully when they take that produce home and enjoy it, that they're also impressed by both the flavor and the nutritional content, and really hopefully a sense of place, just like they get from the wine.
Yeah, absolutely. We have vegetables with terroir, and we also have eggs from our pasture-raised chickens, beautiful eggs with bright orange yolks, so customers are really loving that as well. We have dried chamomile, dried lavender, which is all from the farm. So I think you and I have been talking about our vision going forward of other products from the farm that we could see coming online.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a huge diversity, as you were saying, of these fresh vegetables and flower bouquets, and those are really exciting to be able to offer in the season at peak freshness. And for those products that we either have a windfall of, or we have an exciting opportunity to collaborate with some local chefs and restaurants to create these value-added goods, value-added for the farm, of course. But also, I think this is an opportunity to blend and mix these flavors. Instead of just some cabbage that we grew in the garden, we can add a little salt and ferment that for a couple of weeks and create a more healthy, nutritious sauerkraut. And I think there's a lot of other examples of ferments that we'll be able to offer in the farm stand in the future, where we have fruit trees and berries coming online. We can be making jams and fruit butters, maybe hot sauces from the chilies we're growing, and other fermented condiments. I think that's a real opportunity that I'm excited about. We're making vinegars from our Troon wines, red and white vinegars, which are really exciting. We're growing this huge herb garden that we're going to plant next year. From that, I expect we'll be able to make these herb and spice blends and really have a vision. I think this is probably a couple years down the line, but how cool would it be to have a bulk herb section where you bring your mason jar back and you fill it with some fresh, biodynamic, regenerative, organic certified oregano and thyme and maybe an Italian spice blend that we make ourselves here too. So I think there's enormous potential for these value-added products in the future. And so hopefully these will keep customers coming back, not just for their daily or weekly run if you can't make it to the farmer's market, hopefully you can come out for a glass of wine and take home some fresh veggies, but then always be surprised about the products that we have available, these value-added goods, which will be ever-changing.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I mean, we're integrating into the local food scene, and I know you and I care a lot about that.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely worth a visit to come taste the wine and go home with some amazing produce.
We are happy to share this podcast with you from Troon Vineyard, a Demeter Biodynamic and Regenerative Organic certified winery in Oregon's Applegate Valley. We farm like the world depends on it and produce authentic, naturally crafted wines. We will be sharing these in-depth podcasts several times a month. To learn more, I encourage you to visit our website at troonvineyard.com and those of the Regenerative Organic Alliance at regenorganic.org and Demeter Biodynamics at demeter-usa.org. Thanks for sharing our voyage to regenerative agriculture with us.